deeper behind the Shibud in Mitzrayim, which has a reason, as it was already pre-planned from beforehand.
The Gamet Agoy is already a punishment for this slavery.
And the Rambam, as known, the Rambam asked a question, and all the Rishonim are busy answering the question, why were Mitzrayim altogether punished for that? If it was planned, and in such a way, so the Mitzrayim are generally guilty. What's going on here?
But it's written, and they were afraid they would come and take power.
Right, okay, so it's not slavery. Huh? That's not slavery. Why should they be slaves? Why should they be left to nothing? Because like the dust of the earth. So you have to control it in such a way that they shouldn't go out of hand. Okay, you can control their living quarters, the ghetto they used to be all the years. There's other ways of doing it, but the slavery seems to be a punishment. There must be something behind it.
Today in Dubai, they have this problem. There are more foreigners than people that actually live there.
Yes, it's
so they make certain priorities for the people that live there to keep.
That's right. Certain rights they can lose. That's all. But where's the punishment coming to?
May I try to guess that this process forms a nation?
Oh, that's what we're going to lead to. Yeah, this process has to form the nation, right? Is Azoi. And we were just saying before, the question gets even more difficult because the Rambam doesn't understand why Mitzrayim were punished for this. And all the Rishonim try to understand. Some Rishonim say because Hashem didn't say which nation. He just said a certain nation will punish Klal Yisrael. He didn't say which nation. The Rambam himself takes the point that they did an unreasonable amount of torture for Klal Yisrael, like taking small children and throwing them to water, or that sort of like changing over the jobs, giving men women's jobs and women men's jobs, all these sort of things that were not necessary to make Klal Yisrael into slaves, and they just used them up for unrealistic reasons, and that's why they were punished. But let's try and explain a bit deeper. In some of the Rishonim, each of the Sforim of Bereshis, Shmois, Vayikra have got different names, and the names according to what the parish is talking about. For example, Vayikra is called Toras Kahanim, and Shmois in some places called Chomish HaPikudim. Bamidbar is called Chomish HaPikudim. Devarim is known as Mishnah Torah. Mishnah means repetition of Torah, because most of the mitzvahs there are just repetition from the previous things in Torah. What's interesting is the Smag says like this: each one has a name. And Sefer Shemois is called Sefer Hasheni, the second Sefer. Beresh is not called the first, and Vayikra is not called the third. Shemois is called the second Sefer. So the Nesiv, in his Hakdama for Parsha Shemois, brings this point, and he explains as follows: that Rashi, the beginning of Chumash, says the purpose of Brias Olam was B'Shvil Yisrael. B'Shvil Yisrael, for the sake of Klal Yisrael. B'Shvil HaTorah, for the sake of Torah.
Shenikru Beresh.
Shenikru Beresh, Nikreshis, Torah Nikreshis, Yisrael Nikreshis. Which means to say is that the whole Sefer Bereshis, which is basically involved a whole chain of events till Klal Yisrael came about, has not been finished yet. It's all an unfinished plan, because the whole Tachlis of Brias Olam, and Abraham, and of Yitzchak, and of Yaakov, and of the Shvatim is ordered to come towards Klal Yisrael, which Klal Yisrael are going to be Mekabel the Torah. So Sefer Shemois, in which we discuss the birth of Klal Yisrael, and later on the Kabbalah HaTorah, is all actually a siyum, is the Gemara, that's the whole completion of Sefer Bereshis. So therefore he says, logically it's called Sefer Sheni, because it's part 2 of the original plan. We're talking about Sefer Bereshis, and part 2 of Sefer Bereshis, which is actually the final idea of it, was that Klal Yisrael should become a nation. So that's why it's called the Sefer Sheni, because it's part 2 of Sefer Bereshis. Well, let's understand this a bit deeper. In the Svarim it's known that these weeks are known as Shovavim, Shmois, Va'era, Boy, B'Shalach, Yisrael, Mishpatim, are called the weeks of Shovavim. Just take tissue, please. Thank you. And the Sifra HaKadomonim explain that these are chances to get closer to Kodesh Baruch Hu and to be mesaken on Averis, which are to do with Kedusha of Klal Yisrael, end of Kedusha. And these are given as a chance to return, to do tshuva on these Nekodos. And the reason is, since Klal Yisrael and this Tkufa were taken out of Mitzrayim, and it changed from being mixed between Klal Yisrael to Eretz Mitzrayim, which is known as the worst place of Tzad HaTumah, Tzad HaRain, was Mitzrayim, and Klal Yisrael became freed from all this Tumah of Mitzrayim. So therefore it's struggled these weeks again to go through that procedure. Now, those for Emfataka from Boy, like we're standing now, Boy, B'Shalach, and so on, from this parsha starts the Gulas HaMitzrayim. But Shemois and Va'era in the first half of Boy is Klal Yisrael still deep in Mitzrayim. So why are these weeks also included in the idea of Shovavim, where a person can purify himself, if those were the weeks that they were not being purified, those are the weeks that they were suffering, that were going through hard times or part of the weeks. Yetzias Mitzrayim is called in the Forum Lashon HaRishonim Leidas Am Yisrael. The birth of Klal Yisrael is called Yetzias Mitzrayim, which also needs an explanation. Kabbalah Satoya we can understand is called Leidas Am Yisrael because that's when we became our nation correctly through the Kabbalah Satoya. Why is Yetzias Mitzrayim also known as Leidas Am Yisrael? And one more nekuda before we get to the point is in Psukim. Mitzrayim has a very interesting title. It's called Kur HaBarzel. Kur HaBarzel is a furnace where you purify iron, which is a very, very high degree of heat, 2,000 degrees or something, where you burn out the iron and all the impurifications get burnt out.
In New Hebrew it's called Kur Hituch.
Kur Hituch, yeah, cleaning. So Kur HaBarzel is known in Mitzrayim. Why is Mitzrayim called Kur HaBarzel? What purification had to go through Mitzrayim? How did it work, Bechlal? What's this purification? One more question I'll just mention, also a difficult question. This is Azoid. A lot of Sforim talking about this question. We do Seder Nacht, we do a Seder, Matzah, Moreh, apart from the Korban Pesach, right? We have Matzah, Moreh. Matzah, as we say in Haggadah Shel Pesach, we start by saying Lechem Oini, right? This is the sort of bread that we ate in Mitzrayim. But when you Matzah Zu Al Shum Mo, when you get to the actual point of the Haggadah, which explains the purpose of Matzah, it's explained in Haggadah the purpose of Matzah was to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, that we ran out in a hurry, we disappeared, and we didn't have time to bake the bread properly. Das steht in Haggadah. More the Tzad Sheni is going back a bit to memorize by Yomoras Chayim, the difficult times we had in Mitzrayim. So das was dem müssen anderes Forum stellt sich auf dem. There should have been, we should start with eating Moreh and then eat Matzah.
Reverse,
yeah, or like take Moreh away to Karpas at the beginning before we start Haggadah. And when you get to the Hallel, then you should take the Matzah, it should be the Fakert way. Why do we start off with Matzah and then Moreh? So if we take the last question first, then we see a point from the Seder HaDvorim, the way things are, the system, is that through Yetzias Mitzrayim, through Matzah, through Zoicha to get out of Mitzrayim, it was only then appreciated what the Moreh was for. That the Moreh had this purpose. Because Mamu in the Moreh just seemed to be bitter. But after going out of Mitzrayim, the Klal Yisrael got to realization, they should be get to realization, we'll speak to that later, maybe there's different levels in that. But the idea was to get to the realization that the Moreh was actually Yeshua. So only after the Matzah, when we appreciate that we've gone out of Mitzrayim, can we look back and see that the Moreh had a good purpose, which needs to be understood. What is this purpose? Let's put it into three chalokim, l'choyre, three parts of what was the purpose of Mitzrayim and what was the aliyah, what was the gain that Klal Yisrael actually got better through going through Mitzrayim. There's a pasuk in Mishli, Toiv Kaas Mischoik. It's preferable, it's better. Kaas doesn't mean anger because anger is not better than anything. Right? Anger is one of the worst things that exists. Kaas in that pasuk means when a person is vexation. He gets upset about something, he gets disturbed. And Shlomo Melech tells us, Toiv Kaas Mischoik. Kaas is better than Schoik, than good times, than happy times. What's the be on this? Is Rabbi Zorach explains very often, he says on his tapes, talks about this. And you see it in the nature of a person. A person who has gone through only times of simcha, has never had any difficult times. You see it generally in children in a class, kids when they get to the age of 8, 10, 12, when they come out of nature, a child who's had everything he needs, there's never any difficulties. That means not himself, or neither of his parents have been through any serious illnesses or any problems, and money's never been an issue. He's had his way in all different, in every field he's had it easy going. These are the most difficult kids to get on with generally. Most difficult, and it doesn't get better when they get older.
Psychologically, he's less immune.
He's less immune, of course he's less immune. But no, he's less immune just only takes effect when he has a trouble. Yeah. But this kid, long before he has that problem, is also difficult to get on with. Why is it always just to get his own way? We call it spoiled, right? But it's more than just spoiled. A person who has never been through difficult times gets brazen, it's tough. And he cannot understand the position of anyone else or the feeling of any other person. In the kids you see more, an adult sometimes can control himself, but in children you see it, that if they had an easy life, then they're always much more difficult to get on with. Right? So naturally it's called spoiled, but it's much more than that. The fact is that his neshama, his midas have never been sweetened, have never been softened. Who are the softest people? Those who have been through a suffering. They've been through a certain suffering, and they've been through a tough time, that softens them up. To other people and to themselves also. because they become more flexible, they become more understanding to other people's feelings.
And this is a paradox for itself, because somebody who suffered
Right.
has a vengeance.
Has a vengeance, right. But it depends what the suffering is. If the suffering came with certain bitterness, then it has that effect. But if it's suffering just from a loss of a certain thing, for example, Rabbi Miller says that someone loses his wallet. So he's all nervous, vexed about it, and then after he finds it. So you look back, he said the first part was difficult, and then he was happy because he found his wallet. But the truth is, Shomer tells us, Toiv, the purpose of the good part of it, was this Kas Mischoik. The fact that he went through this time, a period where he didn't have his wallet, and he lost himself, and he had to come into Rebbeinu Shem, to come to say a Kapitel Tehillim, and put the coin in Meibal Nest. That was the purpose, that was better than actually finding his wallet. It may be more pleasant to find his wallet afterwards, but the fact that he lost it did more tachlis him. So Mamela, one of the basic preparations for becoming Ummah Yisrael is the fact that they have to be able to accept everything that Rebbeinu Shem does, everything that's done for us, and also to be able to survive between so many different types of nations. Klal Yisrael is only one of the Ummah that survived from beginning to the end. Everything else has changed. Right, all the Romans, Greeks, and wherever they may be are not the same power as they used to be, if they exist at all. And even the Egyptians are not what they used to be. So it was the strongest country in the world. Interestingly enough, if you look through Tanakh, so we find Klal Yisrael, when they went moving to Eretz Yisrael, had trouble from all the neighbors continuously, from Plishtim, from Syria, all around. And we never find for 500 years that the Mitzrayim caused any. We don't find a word about them at all. So we find that the Mitzrayim were so subdued to the Makkahs and to Kriyash Yamsuf, for the next 500 years, they're not mentioned B'chlal in Tanakh. There's no mention, they didn't exist. They had absolutely no power whatsoever. And they never picked themselves up since then. Egypt is Egypt. They never managed to pick themselves up. They were the power of the world. I mean, they were stronger than the Iron Curtain. There was no one managed to get in or out of that place at all without just explicit permission.
I don't know, but the historians, I don't know if that's, they say that Israel was all the time a province of Mitzrayim, essentially.
Very possible. All the time.
All the archaeological proof is that in essence Israel was, except in the times that there was, that there was continuously a war between Mitzrayim and Syria, and a couple of years Israel belonged to this one, another couple of years belonged to that one, and that's
in which part of history? After
the time of the Maccabees, the time of Hanukkah.
Much later.
Much later. So they picked up their head, took them time, so hundreds of years till they get back into their feet.
Israel was part of Grand Syria on that time.
Grand Syria, that's right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to prepare Klal Yisrael for this, so they had to go through the suffering which made them softer, which made them more acceptable to the Rebbeinu Shem want to give for them. But that was number one. The second point is as this. To ask a nation like Klal Yisrael, which are not the easiest people, as the Prophet says very often, they're all very, very tough people, to get them to accept anything is extremely difficult. And to get Klal Yisrael to accept something, to accept the Torah, which means Torah controls a person's life from the minute he wakes up till he goes to sleep, even when he's sleeping. There's halachas for a person of every the way he has to go to sleep, the way he has to eat, the way he has to use his eyes, his mouth, his ears, and his whole body, and his whole life is under control. It's not just a book of laws, do's and don'ts. It's a complete control, it's a complete different system of life. From Aleph bis Tov, everything is changed. How can you get Klal Yisrael, a nation of 600,000 men? There must have been a cheshbon of, according to what it says in this forum, about 2 million people. They should come out of Mitzrayim and say, yes, we accept the Nasa v'Nishma. It's just not possible. You can't even you sit in a meeting of 4 people around the table, you can't get 2 of them to agree on the same points. It just doesn't happen. But the only possibility was this. The Rebbeinu Shem said this. Mitzrayim is not a punishment. Mitzrayim is a time when the Klal Yisrael lose their identity completely. That means they have no control of their own life. They have nothing at all. Mitzrayim are controlling them day and night, themselves, their wives, their children, their life. They haven't got anything whatsoever. Nothing. They're completely lost. And this goes on generation, it must have been quite a few, 4 or 5 generations that went like this for 200 years. And till Klal Yisrael came to a point where they felt there's nothing, they have no identity whatsoever. As Chazal say, they kept certain rules. They kept their clothes were different, they kept their languages and the names. But that was it. That's it. Yeah, that's really chatonis and things outside clothes and language. But they themselves had no personality at all. Then came Yetzias Mitzrayim, which Yetzias Mitzrayim, just like the Iron Curtain broke down overnight, right? The Berlin Wall disappeared, something like that. Yetzias Mitzrayim was taken in such a way that I don't think in history there's ever been such a major turnover within such a short time. Because Paro was insistent. He had no havamir letting out Klal Yisrael. till it came to Makkah's Bechoros. And the second Makkah Choros behad, he woke up middle of the night and he started running around looking for Moshe Rabbeinu, and he chased the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. And they had to force him to calm down till tomorrow morning. Moshe Rabbeinu not going out till the next morning. So it changed to such an extreme that every single Mitzri in the country was pushing closer, and not only that, they gave them everything they could think of. Rashi brings that when they asked to borrow kalim from the neighbors, asked to borrow expensive clothes or other things, so they said, "You want one, take two," said Rashi. They just gave them, take the whole Mitzrayim and move out of here. Let's get out of here.
He
That
said it
turnover.
because of the trust.
Sorry?
He said it because of the trust.
Who had the trust?
The Egyptian.
Yeah, you trust they come back. Right, okay. But the attitude to Klal Yisrael changed so much that Klal Yisrael went out with the singing. There had been, a few months before, slaves with no personality whatsoever, and they went out singing, biyad romo, right, with music and with money. The Gemara says that the poorest of Klal Yisrael went out with 70 donkeys full of jewelry and silver and gold. I mean, Mitzrayim was the richest country in the world, by far. And the Klal Yisrael emptied it out, like a net that has nothing left of it. Completely emptied out, took everything with them. It would seem to be that whatever's hidden somewhere under the ground, they took out later, because Rashi explained when they came to Kriyas Yamsuf, when they came to fight with Klal Yisrael, so they adorned the horses also with jewelry. Something must be left behind, but after the season time, after Kriyas Yamsuf, nothing was left at all. So the changeover, and they realized, as we soon discussed, over the year took a whole year, Makkahs, who was behind all this, the Rebbeinu Shem. So when Hashem said to them 40 days later, listen here, I want to give you now the Torah. So why should they not accept it? The Rebbeinu Shem has taken us into such a situation where we know what the feeling is to be under control completely day and night. But who to some Rishon, to some Meshuggah Nepara there who's got absolutely no reason whatsoever. And here the Rebbeinu Shem has taken us out to show us the greatest Ahava, the greatest love, and the greatest kindness. And they said to Moshe, now let's hear, you've been under control, do it now for someone who loves you. Do it now for Tzchar, for Olam Haba, for Tzchar in this world, for Tzchar in Olam Haba. Is it not worth it? So there was never a better preparation in Klal Yisrael. If you give them an easy time, take them to Schweiz, and let them spend 200 years in the Swiss Alps and have everything they need, they would never dream of accepting Torah. It would never happen. It couldn't happen such a thing. So the biggest hachana for Kabbalah Torah and to become a Jewish nation was the fact, the moroi, that they went through the suffering and they lost their feelings completely. And I'll prove it to you.
This is a good scenario as long as they wouldn't have the Egel.
That's right. Egel was after the Kabbalah Torah. And even the Egel was only instituted by Eirava, which were actually Mitzrayim.
It also seems maybe that the system worked so well that they actually needed someone. Of
course they needed. Where are we going to identify now? But we'll see it's a bit deeper than that. And the Egel was only through the Eirava who went to a comfortable life. They had no problems in Mitzrayim. They only became Eden right at the end, after the 10 Makkahs. They went and, yeah.
But, sorry, what is the merit then? I mean, it's a kind of manipulation in a way. Sorry, maybe I'm using extreme words,
okay.
But it's a kind of manipulation to bring people in such bad circumstances that once you give them the best thing, then they say, "Oh, thanks a lot. We will do whatever you ask." I mean, it seems where's the merit then from the?
Because the reason is the actual merit why we were zocheh to Torah was not because of Israel. It's because of the grandparents, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. And Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov accepted Torah willingly. No one forced them into it. And the Rebbeinu wants to give it to their children. I'm going to give them the best thing I have, which was created before Brias Olam. Was Torah. I want to give it to your children. Now the children had become such a massive nation that they couldn't possibly accept, as we just say now, what Hashem wanted to give to Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. So the manipulation was really just in order to give Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov what they deserved, and they give it to their children. So you have to formulate this fact that the children will accept it, in order that the parents should. Rashi brings in a place, I can't exactly which Rashi is, that Hashem gave them all the silver and gold from the Muslim when they left, in order to show Avraham that I'll keep my promise. Now give them Rechush Gadol. And the same with Kabbalah Torah. Kabbalah Torah wasn't Klal Yisrael alone. It was the fact that Avraham worked out it for himself, even not only 613 mitzvahs of Torah, even the Drabonadik mitzvahs he worked out himself, and he kept them. So Hashem said, in that case, you deserve to have my Torah. I'll give it to your children. So really, the manipulation is only in order to continue what Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov had already accepted. And you see this also, this point, because when they went into Mitzrayim, you're taking out a nation, you're going to save them. Just imagine you get someone out of prison, he's been there for years, and you finally get him out, and you just take him, you drop him in the middle of a desert. You say, here you are, there's nothing food, no drink, no clothes, nothing, here you are. What's what we see in Mitzrayim is that? What's the idea of it? You take them to Mitzrayim, you take them out of the country, into the Midbar, but there's nothing. I mean, if not for that COVID and them on, they'd die within 2 days or 3 days. There's nothing left of them. So what sort of Yeshua was that? We'll take out Mitzrayim and drop you into Midbar. What does that mean? Well, it continues with the same theme as in Mitzrayim, as we were talking about, that it says in Mitzrayim had to show Klal Yisrael everything that you were relying on in Mitzrayim. You had none of your own identification, and everything you had to have was from the stream. Now you're going to get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We'll take you into the Midbar, where the Anana covered will clean your clothes, and where water will come from. Someone said that when a child was born in the Midbar, walking to Mitzrayim, walked to Eretz Yisrael, he started seeing wonderful nissim. All of a sudden, water comes from the sky, and food comes from the floor. Till now, he was used to it the other way around. He was used to the water comes to the floor from some stone, and food comes from the sky. He'd never seen such a nest before. It's all nissim. They're both nissim. So Klal Yisrael will take you into a place where naturally there's no way of survival. There's nothing. And I'll look after you there, says Rabbi Zorach. That's what brings Klal Yisrael into the preparation of those 40 days to come into Kabbalah Satorah. That was one purpose of Yitzias Mitzrayim, of actually Shibud Mitzrayim. Now we go to the Esther Makos, which is last week's parasha, this week's parasha. Esther Makos was really a shiur, a long shiur, took a whole year, of Emunah. It means like this. There's actually 2 points in the Emunah that we learned from the Makos. The first of all, the most natural parts of Emunah is that the one who's controlling the world is in control of everything. He's in control of the weather, of the earth, of the water, of insects, of animals, of people, life and death, everything. Yeah, the darkness and the darkness, the Choshech showed that the Rebbe is in control of changing anything 1 second to the other. Broad daylight could be. I saw some beautiful words in the Sefer Be'er Yosef in last week's parsha. So there's two Makos where Moshe said that tomorrow it'll start. The first one was Dever, when the pestilence, when the animals died, and the other one was Borot. Borot, that's what says tomorrow it'll be. Borot says Ko'es Mocho, like this at this time tomorrow. So Rashi says that's right. He made a symbol on the wall. And he said when the sun gets to this line, it'll come again. Only by Borot, by Dever, we don't find this sign. What's the reason that? Almost a beautiful word. Something you hear about Torah, he says Mamish Emes. He says as follows. Rabbi Yosef Salant, he was a Maggid in Yerushalayim, must have been some 40 years ago. So he says as follows: hail, borod, only comes when it's a very dark day. We have sometimes hail. It's very, very cloudy. And the Makkah of borod was anyway full of nissim, because it came with fire and it came with ice at the same time. And when they stopped in the middle of the day, all sorts of nissim. But the biggest nest of them was it came in the middle of a bright day. It was broad daylight. There was nothing, sun was shining. So the Moshe said, tomorrow you'll see the sun will get to here in the middle of the day, and it'll be sunny, it'll be a blue sky, and then the borod will fall. So from all sides, the Klal Yisrael and the Mitzrayim were meant to learn it really, but they didn't get the lesson. But the lesson was for Klal Yisrael to see that the Rebbe is in control of us, of everything, of suddenly the jungle, Mitzrayim is a hot place, it's not near the equator, it's not very far, and suddenly the jungle and polar bears came. There's this forum they say, as the Apostle says, Ve'es ha'adom asher heim alehem, that they came with the earth that they used to living on, because most animals can only survive in their own surroundings. So Moshe brought the surrounding with them, where the polar bear came along with his ice as well to keep them going. And as well, and all those that can survive in jungle, the sort of humility they need, they came along with that as well. They came everything at all. So the Baruch show there's nothing that is not in his control, whether it's from the dust became kilim and you name it, right? All sorts of things that just couldn't happen normally. So this was a lesson not only for the Mitzrayim, one punishment for the Mitzrayim, was for the fact that Klal Yisrael should realize that we're going to go be taken over to Rabbi Shem, he's going to ask to take the Torah, and we'll realize that there's nothing that is not under his control. Of course, then it'll be easier to be Makabel the Torah. We see how far this goes, because there's an interesting Rosh, the Rosh al Torah, asks a very strong question. 4/5 of Klal Yisrael didn't survive Mitzrayim, they didn't go out to Mitzrayim, right? 4/5 stayed inside by the Choshech, they died. And the reason was because they were missing in Emunah. They were comfortable, and they said, it's okay, it's fine, the Bosh taken Torah, it's okay. Chamushim Yatzu Bnei Yisrael. Faith the Rosh, Dos and Aviram are known as two troublemakers in Klal Yisrael, right? They were the troublemakers there at the time when Moshe Rabbeinu had to run away from Mitzrayim. And in the future also we find that they were troublemakers, Dos and Aviram. Why did they survive Mitzrayim? Atka Dekach in the Chazal says that they didn't want to go into the Yam Suf with everyone else, they refused, and the Moshe made extra case Yam Suf with them after that, so they should go through. So why did they survive? So the Rosh says they had one advantage that the other people didn't have, and that is they believed. They believed that the Moshe was going to take them out of Mitzrayim. It says this, so Chaim Kaufman, the Sefer Mishchas Shemen, that was the Mashiach in Gate Shivtana, explains as follows, that we're looking back at the Makkos and we see that of course the Baruch is in control and everything's okay, everything's fine, we understand the Emunah from them. But at the time, it was very difficult to have Emunah because, let's start off with Dam, right? The same with all the Makkos, start off with Dam. Dam made an absolute havoc in Mitzrayim, total havoc. It means there was no liquid bichlal anywhere to find. There was nothing that survived, no swimming pool, no lake, no water. Even within the woods, Rashi says, within the wood itself there's a certain dampness, also became red, and the skies became red. And then, as the Pasuk says, the fish died and the place became unbearably, the smell of Mitzrayim was terrible. It was an absolute, totally havoc. And you can understand, and the only way they could afford to have a cup of water was they paid $300 to a Yid to have a cup of water. I couldn't get anything. So, and this went on for a whole week. I mean, I had recently only the hot water cut out for me. I mean, in the middle of the winter, the boiler went down. It was terrible, but we had water hot. You could take the water, you heat up on the stove, and carry on. But we had no water whatsoever. I mean, in the hurricane, after such things, where you see there's missing water, the illnesses come, and everything's upside down. So Klal Yisrael was sure, after Dam, that's it, finished. They're going to say it's okay. And nothing of the sort. A second later, the Dam stopped. We're not letting out. And Pari was a ruler that said it was darf zu sein. It didn't let go of them, and this went on again and again and again. And they were after Oriv. People had snakes and scorpions in the house, and they saw it was uncontrollable. They couldn't lock themselves anywhere. They were not safe anywhere. Everything was, and it's still, no, we're not letting out. So Klal Yisrael could have seen, a lot of them did see that, the Baruch is controlling the world, except for Pari, till Pari. Let's say after he can manage till Pari. The Pari was only this high, only 1 hammer high, and everything he can manage, but not Pari. Look what's going on here. He showed him a lesson from all sides, from up, down, left, right. He can't control Pari. Pari is just not letting him. And very many didn't survive the Nestlei. They went through this and they didn't get their money properly. They saw the Baruch is here, things are happening, but that's it. Nothing will happen after that. And when they got to Choshech, which was the last Makkah before the end, 4 Makkahs b'Chodesh, 4/5 didn't survive. They said, listen here, okay, fine, but we're going to stay here. When staying in Mitzrayim, everything's all right, Baruch may control us, but we're not going to get out of this place. And the Taka didn't survive. So Emunah was something which was obvious. Now we're looking back at it, but at the time was the big Nestlei, and only those who actually managed to pull through were those that will come with the Torah later. So now we understand what we were talking about before. Why is Mitzrayim called Kur HaBasel? Because it's both a purification, and not only purification of the midas of Klal Yisrael, that they should become adinus, they should become, as we're saying, soft and acceptable, nor also in the Emunah, and every point that's necessary in order to recover the Torah, they got through Kur HaBasel, through this purification process of being in Mitzrayim. That's also why, of course, it's a birth of Klal Yisrael, as we said, because without that, it would never have happened. Counter Kabbalah said there would be an argument, there'd be a riot. Who's interested? Yes, and they start every mitzvah taking it to pieces, whether we can or we can't. I can, I'm not so sure. I mean, try and make if you have a block of flats, right? So you have the concierge, or not the concierge, what's it called, the one who's arranging the
Syndic?
The syndic, he sits down with the meeting and he tries to arrange a new boiler. Look what happens. It's just not possible, right? So with anything, we want to put a new lift or change the cleaner. Everyone's got a different opinion. And if you've gone through the Torah and go through each mitzvah and try and explain everyone everything, we'd never get anywhere. We're still busy now. And Klal Yisrael accepted in 1 second because they had this achonah for Kabbalah Satorah. That's also why, as we said in Shovavim, Shmois and Vo'era Boy, which are the parts of Klal Yisrael really still suffering, Shmois Vo'era Kaponim, is also part of the purification of Klal Yisrael. We go through these weeks and we are mesugel to take the situation as it is and become through that more pure. The mesugel to get purified is in these times. Now, I just want to finish off with one point from, I heard last week a shiur from the Israel Taube, the Shver from Amram Heinig. He came to us, the Shiva, and spoke. I'll just take up one point of what he said. He said a very interesting point which takes this whole lesson we're saying now in the actual day-to-day life now, because as we know, the Pesukim say that the Gula HaOsed, when Mashiach will come, is Kimei Tzeis Eretz Mitzrayim. We're going to go through the same system as he went through Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen a similar way. What's going to happen is like this. Rabbi Shlem is going to take out Klal Yisrael through Mashiach, and there's going to be a period of Gemara Mashiach, and there's a period of Olam Haba. Olam Haba, as mentioned forum, is pure ruchnius. That means everyone is going to be in one big shiurim, right, one big Medrash, and the Baruch Hashem is going to give us understanding, depth of mitzvahs, of Torah. Torah has an unlimited depth, and we're going to have a shiur. Now, everyone's going to be able to understand it, but according to a certain level. Let me say this. he explained, just like by Yetzias Mitzrayim, we find in the Psukim and Haggadah Pesach, there was Arba Abonim, there was the Chochem, Rosh, Tamish, Ened, Lishel. He said these 4 types of children are 4 types of people, how they accepted Yetzias Mitzrayim. They all had a certain amount of emunah, even the Rosh wants to know what's going on. It's not that Rosh wasn't deserving Bichlal. And the Chochem, the time, had different degrees of how they prepared themselves in Yetzias Mitzrayim, how they prepared their emunah to accept what they're going to get the Torah. And Kabbalah's Torah was also like that. The Moshe gave Torah for the whole Klal Yisrael, and according to how much a person was up to it, that's how much he accepted the Torah. It's a bit of a chiddush, but he says the Osolog, we say this, and Shomesh and Sartabi Tahori, Atu Tzartabi Nefachti, Ba'ato Meshamra Beketu, right? And Ba'ato Osu Litlo Mimenu, we're going to lose our Neshama once. V'osu Lachzira Bi L'Osolog, we're going to get the same Neshama back L'Osolog. That means that whatever preparation a person does for his Neshama, that's where he'll get back to Oselovoi, and he'll be Nehena, he'll have enjoyment from Kuntahamas preparation. Now, it doesn't mean he has to know the whole of Shas in order to have a know. He has to have done in his situation the amount of preparation that the Neshama needs to have. He has to have the right cheshik for it, the right enjoyment in what's correct, and that'll open his possibility, Oselovoi, to accept more from the Beinstein. So the same as Klal Yisrael went through the times when they didn't see the actually Shiur, they were still stuck in Mitzrayim, they went through the mess. So also we're going through the Golus, which is longer than Mitzrayim, and it has to come with the same point. Those who will pull through, like Chav Chaim says, the Pasuk says that the das, means the wisdom in Oselov will be like water. Kemayim liyom chasim. It'll cover water from the top is all the same level, but it's not the same depth. It just depends on how low the earth is underneath. So Chav Chaim says Chochmas Hashem will be the same everywhere. But according to how much depth a person has prepared himself, that's how much he'll enjoy it, that's how much he'll get out of it. Everyone be zoichut to it. It's like upon him that we're going through this similar in a different system, of course. But the idea is the same, that when we're going through the Golus, it's a time to prepare. And to prepare an understanding for everything we learn, everything we see, understanding in davening, understanding in the Parashat Torah, understanding Yiddishkeit, and to want to know more. We're all limited. Everyone's limited into according to the situation, according to how much he knows, how much he's been taught. We're all limited. But if a person wants to know more and gets further, then of course when it comes to L'Oselovi, the Korev, and emotion pours all the Chochmah, so the more the Keli, the more the person has worked himself to accept it, he'll get more and more Ashvos, Be'ez Hashem, the Mashiach will come.
May I have 2 remarks?
Please.
First, a normal formation of a nation is within its land, one language, under one roof.
Right.
And the formation of the Jewish nation was in a midbar, with no language and nothing in common. This is a phenomenon.
Right.
Secondly, the remarks, I don't want to go into it now, but the Shoah. The question raises of the Shoah. If this is a kind of a formation, is this the answer of the Shoah?
Shoah is another conversation completely. Yeah. Maybe next time.
Chomer lemachshava.
Yeah. If I know.